I remember the day the whispers began. It was in Zaria, a small village where everyone knew each other, where secrets were rare. But Amina, the talented weaver, had become the subject of murmurs that traveled faster than the wind. She was known for her breathtaking fabrics, colors so rich they seemed to dance in the light, patterns so intricate that no one could figure out how she did it. People came from far and wide to buy her work, and traders fought over who could carry her pieces to the market. But something about Amina always seemed a little too perfect, too smooth. We all knew the work of a master when we saw it. But how could she produce so much fabric, so consistently, without ever running out of materials? I, too, wondered about this, though I kept my thoughts to myself. No one ever saw her buy thread or dye, yet her loom was never still, and the cloth never stopped flowing. Rumors started in the marketplace. They said she had been blessed by the gods. Others thought she was using magic. Some of the older women in the village shook their heads and muttered that no one could be that fortunate without paying some kind of price. I never gave those stories much thought, not until that night. It was early evening when Amina's young apprentice, Lami, came to me, her eyes wide with fear. She was only 16 but had always been fascinated by Amina's work, staying late at the weaving shed, watching her every move. She had learned quickly, but that night, she wasn't interested in talking about weaving. She told me that she had seen something terrible, something I needed to know. At first, I brushed her off. What could a young girl possibly have seen that could shake her so deeply? But Lami insisted. She said she had hidden behind a pile of cloth in Amina's shed, curious about how Amina was able to keep weaving such beautiful pieces without running out of supplies. And what she saw, her voice trembled as she spoke, was something she could not understand. Amina had been sitting at her loom, as usual, but she wasn't using thread. Lami saw her pulling long, dark strands of her own hair from her head and feeding them into the loom. The strands shimmered as they stretched across the loom, turning into the finest, smoothest fabric anyone had ever seen. But Amina's hair, it was thin, almost gone. She had pulled so much of it that her scalp was beginning to show, and yet she kept weaving, as if she was in a trance, as if she couldn't stop. Lami had gasped, unable to contain her shock. That's when Amina noticed her. "You should not have seen this," Amina had whispered to the girl, her voice weak and shaky. Lami described the look on Amina's face. It was not the face of the confident woman we all knew. There was fear in her eyes, a deep, bone-chilling fear that made Lami's skin crawl. Amina told her a story then, a story that Lami relayed to me that night, her voice barely above a whisper. Years ago, Amina had been visited by a woman, not from the village, but someone strange, someone powerful. This woman offered Amina a gift, a deal. Really, she could have the talent of 1,000 weavers, a skill that would bring her more fame and fortune than she could imagine. But there was a catch, as there always is with such things. Amina would have to weave with her own hair. At first, it had seemed like a small price to pay. Amina was young and full of ambition. She accepted the deal without thinking twice, and true to the stranger's word, her weaving became otherworldly, each piece more beautiful than the last. Her fame grew, her fortune increased, and the village admired her for her skill. But over time, she noticed something strange. Her hair, once thick and dark, was thinning, falling out in strands that she could not stop. Yet, she couldn't stop weaving. The loom called to her, demanding more and more. Lami was terrified. She ran out of Amina's shed that night, not knowing what to do or who to tell. She had come to me because I had always been one to listen, to give advice when others wouldn't. But this was beyond anything I had ever heard. Could it be true? Could Amina have been weaving with her own hair all this time, sacrificing herself for beauty and wealth? The next morning, something changed in the village. Amina didn't come out of her house, and her shed remained silent. The loom, once a constant hum in the background, was still. People started talking, asking where she was, but no one dared to go to her home. Not until later that day, when Lami came running again, saying we had to go. Something was wrong. I went with her, along with a few others. We knocked on Amina's door, but there was no answer. When we finally opened it, we found her sitting by the loom, her head in her hands. She was bald. Every last strand of her beautiful hair was gone. She had tried to weave again, but her hands were weak, trembling. The loom had stopped responding to her touch. Amina looked up at us, her eyes hollow, and I realized then what had happened. She had given everything, her talent, her beauty, her strength, for a gift that had taken more from her than she ever thought possible. And now, with her hair gone, she could no longer weave. The loom had betrayed her, just as the deal she made had. Her wealth faded quickly after that. No one came to buy her fabrics anymore. Traders found other weavers, and the fame she had once enjoyed turned into something darker. The village people avoided her, whispering about the curse she had brought upon herself. I saw her from time to time, wandering the village with her head covered, her hands shaking as if the weight of her decisions was too much for her to bear. And then, one day, she was gone. No one saw her leave, but her house was empty, her loom abandoned. Some said she had gone to seek the woman who had given her the cursed gift, to beg for mercy. Others believed she had gone mad, wandering the countryside, looking for a way to undo what had been done, but no one really knew. All that remained were the stories. People spoke of her in hushed tones, a reminder that no gift comes without a price, and that sometimes, the cost is too great. We all learned a lesson from Amina's fall, one that I carry with me to this day. As I finish telling you this, I feel the weight of her story. Amina had once been the brightest star in Zaria, but her light was extinguished by greed and a deal she never should have made. It's a story that still haunts me, and I hope it will stay with you, too, a reminder to be careful of what you wish for and to always consider the cost. That is the tale of Amina, the weaver who wove her own downfall.